Good morning. It's 10 o'clock and we're going to get started with our Keystroke Live presentation. Today it's the Merchant Warehouse Genius Pin Pad device. I'll try to hold this up for people viewing, although this is the Merchant Warehouse Genius device. It is a pin pad, signature capture, and swipe. And it has some other functionality about the different screens that you can display. And again, with Keystroke Live, we do this every Wednesday at 10 o'clock Mountain Time. And today we're going to be going over the Merchant Warehouse Genius Pin Pad device. Today we're talking about the Merchant Warehouse Genius Pin Pad device, and again I'll hold it up if people are looking or see the web picture. It's got a swipe. It's got of course, a mag strip reader, swipe. It's a pin pad. It does do signature capture. It is a device that's end-to-end encrypted with Merchant Warehouse. This is a unit where the device actually is prompted to let the customer actually handle the transaction payments, meaning the customer selects whether it's a debit card, a Visa, MasterCard, credit card, or an EBT or gift card. This device is actually an Ethernet TCP/IP device. It is currently plugged into our router here on our same network. We have set a static IP on this device. We recommend that you do that. So if you have more than one device in the building, they'll each have their own static IP. It will make sure that you don't get things crossed if you reboot or a router reboots. I'm going to show you this, the people that can see me on the screen. On the back of the device, there is a little pinhole here. This pinhole is going to be used, you'll see in some documentation on how to set up things like your own company logo, to turn on and off keys and so forth, and we'll go over that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and take a look first of all in Keystroke at the setup, and then we'll come back. In the Keystroke program, I'm going to go to Configuration Manager from the exit menu, and we're going to go to Hardware and Pin Pads, and I've already tested this morning. You would select the type as MW Genius. That's at the top of the list. The IP address is the one that you've set up using some documentation that's really well defined on how to set up the the IP address. When I click on the setup, here's kind of the nuts and bolts of our setup. This is a test account for Keystroke POS. You can actually do test cards with this device. It goes to a live server with this account and this business key and this site ID. If you need any of this information, our support staff can send it off to you. This is what we call the mappings. This is where Visa is mapped to. In our case, we have one payment type called Visa, MasterCard, Discover. But if you do choose to set up multiple payment types in Keystroke, if you have one called Visa, one separate called MasterCard, and one separate called Discover, and one separate called American Express, you can actually map this so that when a customer swipes a Visa card, it will automatically tell Keystroke that, hey, that's a Visa card. So in this sample, with our sample data, we have everything under one bucket, meaning there's one payment type for 3 of the cards. But this is kind of the one thing people have been asking for, is to get a device that recognizes the card number and applies it in Keystroke with the correct the correct payment type. So this will eliminate the case where they select Visa, MasterCard, and Discover and then swipe an American Express. The customer might, and they may never see it, but we want it to come back and actually post to the American Express payment type. There's other settings here and so forth. This level up, we might talk about that in a little bit, and all the different other kinds of cards. You really should select something for everything, meaning when I select an unknown other card, I want it to go to the Visa, MasterCard, Discovery payment type in Keystroke. You could set up an other swiped card, but this makes more sense. Today we're going to go through just a little bit on how you can see the screens and add gratuity, donations, and discounts. In my case here, I've set up gratuity. I set it up as a payment type, which is recommended. I hit insert here in the payment number field. It brings up the list of payment types. I could set up a payment type called cash back on debit or something like that, or but I just have selected cash in my case here. And I'm not going to set up the others at this time. This is where you would turn on the skip approval message if you just wanted to start printing receipts automatically. After a invoice has been approved, it would just automatically start printing. I'm going to go ahead, and this is where the IP address is stored. And by the way, this is stored currently in the registry, so you do need administrative rights to set up the Keystroke program, at least this initial time, and then it will remember that setting. We'll say OK to this. It comes up and just warns me about donations that have not been set up yet, and I'm going to say no. Same thing with discounts. These are ways to tell the genius on what to do in addition to the standard stuff. I'm going to use the test pin pad button over here on the right. It's going to actually do a little communication handshake with the device. It first finds the IP port and then goes and pings it, and it tells me it's online, and it shows me the serial number. You do need to know the serial number if you need to have Merchant Warehouse force an update to your device. They can do that electronically if you're not on a current update of a build, or they call an app version. Then it goes through, and there's a transport key that's kind of confirming this device with that merchant number can do a special handshake. Now it says waiting on the customer to enter the payment. On the device, you may or may not be able to see this with the reflection. It's asking me to choose credit, debit, or other, and it's $1.19. Or I can just swipe a card and it'll figure it out. So I'm going to swipe a card. It's now processing, and it's going to probably come back. Here's where we talk about how you can program this device to include tips or not include tips. I've set up this device to set up a screen for tips. Sorry about the bad picture. And on this screen here, it shows 10%, 20%, 30%, 40, 50, other amount or no tip. So I could just hit the 20% button, and now it's processing. It's asking me to sign, which means it liked what I did, and it actually was $1.43. And back in Keystroke, and by the way, I get an approved message on the device. Back in Keystroke, it kind of tells me what had happened. There was a tip of 24 cents. That was the 20% on $1.09, and it added up to $1.43. It was a swiped card. It said it was a Visa card, and this card is a test card I have that starts with a 4. It is a Visa card. So if you had 3 different payment types for Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, this one would be plotted towards the Visa. Let's just say OK to this. I'll go ahead and show the signature on the line. I didn't really spend much time signing it. There's the signature. And you may not have seen that. I just saw the way Log Me In is doing something. Remove payment. We'll say OK. It actually goes out there and kind of does a void of that $1.43 transaction. And it says it's done, so it's ready to go. In the current build of Keystroke, under Hardware and Signature Capture, you do see that it is now set up. In older versions of Keystroke, it would say SIGCAP equals none, but this gives us a little more control, and then there might be later on an option to actually get the signature, have a timeout session that's in number of seconds. Some people will sit there and it'll be asking them to sign and they don't know that. And if they sit for a long period of time, we found out over 2 minutes, then it actually times out and says, no signature found. Would you like to prompt them again? And then you go through this little routine to do so. So this device is ready to go at this time. I'm just going to go ahead and save that and go to Sales Manager and show you just one transaction, how it looks. I'm going to probably just do a simple transaction here. And here are the list of payments. As you notice below cash and check, normally where you would see Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, it says selected by customer. Below that you'll see split tendered. And then below that you'll see manually entered payment. And I've set up some other things, like I've set up a debit that uses a different authorization method than the Genius device. That's why this is on the list here. But if I go ahead and say select it by customer, and actually I'm going to do this in reverse. I'm going to do the manually entered payment because this is interesting with this device. You cannot use the device to type in a card number. You cannot use a keyboard to type in the card number in Keystroke, but you'll see when I hit manually entered payment, it gives me a kind of a confirm amount screen. I'm going to just say OK to this. And then I'm going to have to switch screens here for you to see this. Payment entry. You should be able to see this now. This is kind of like an internet, they call it a trans web screen, and this is a secure Internet Explorer type of a screen. It has the card number, the expiration date, CVV2, cardholder street address, and so forth. I'm going to cancel this and come back. Back to Keystroke, if that's what's my active window. It says cancel by customer. If I put a customer on this screen, let's just go with this. I've selected manually entered. All I've done here is just add a new customer. Switch screens to make sure you can see what I'm seeing. Here's the payment entry screen, and here it's done some work for me, meaning it's put in the cardholder name, the street address, and the zip code. So a lot of times you could set up a cash customer with, let's say, the default local zip code, and it'll populate the local zip code for all your cash sales. This is where I would go ahead and type in a number, and I'll do that just for the sake of this. And I can use a keyboard here, keeping in mind that this is not as secure as actually using the device. So if you choose to do manually entered cards, hopefully you have a good reason for it. I'm just entering the card, and then I'm hitting the tab key to go to the next field. And I'm putting in the expiration date without the slashes. That's 12/14. Tab. And then the CVV2, I think on these test cards, is just 123. And by the way, down below you'll see some information. It says order number, which is our invoice number 37. It's register 1.1, transaction ID. And this is like payment number 1 of transaction 37. This is register 1, clerk 1. So these numbers would change. And I'll go ahead and click submit. Should go out to the internet. It got approved. I did have a skip approved turned on. It's back in Keystroke. It does not ask for a signature for the manually entered screen. We hit save, and I'll show you that transaction again here. It was for $333, and there's our Visa payment. I'm just editing it. It says it's been, I can only view this payment. There's the information, and I have turned off the opt code. Actually, there would be a number in there normally. So that was the first example, the most uncommon example of Keystroke. I'm going to go ahead and sell the same item, a little different amount, and now we'll do selected by customer. This is the most common, and for those of you dealers that use toolbars, I could actually click on the Visa, MasterCard, or Discover, and it would see the mapping, and it would automatically go to the selected by customer. I can click on Amex, it would see the mapping. Same thing with gift. It would see that gift cards are mapped, and it would actually go in and start using the device. For this, I'll just click on MasterCard. And now, you can't see the device, but it's showing $2.99 on the device, and it shows at the top credit, debit, or EBT. So I'm going to do a credit by just touching the credit key. Shows a slightly different screen. It says, do I want to change the payment type or just swipe my card? I'll go ahead and do that here. This is we have turned on tips for testing and stuff. You can turn these screens on and off with they call it their OS menu. So I can say no tip, or if you're not in a business that takes tips, you just turn this screen off and it would proceed on as if hitting no tip. It's processing it. When it comes up with the signature screen, that means it's been approved. It won't ask you for a signature if it's declined. And I'm going to do a little, it shows approved on the device, and then it resets. And if I wanted to, I can look at this payment. There's the payment, the information. It's been approved. I can look at the signature, and this one I kind of tried to handwrite Mike T. So this is, and there's the auth code right here. It's an OK56C, 586C. We have that turned off in Keystroke, so people don't type things in there. So that actually has gone through just fine. I'm going to go ahead and show you a debit transaction. This device actually works with a live key, a live account on their live servers, so we're not allowed to use a test card for debit on their live server. We could have had this programmed with a test development key, but we chose not to, and this one can actually be used with other people's live accounts for testing. So if I go ahead and select it by customer, this comes up and it says, and I'm going to hit the debit button. That's the one in the middle here. So if I do it right, I hit debit. It's showing me swipe card, and I'm going to go ahead and swipe the same card actually I've been using. Now it's asking me for the PIN number. And this is where it can ask for the cash back amount. In this screen, if your company does not do cash back, you can turn this screen off on the device. It says $10, $20, $30, $40 or other. For the sake of this, I'm going to do a $5. I hit the other amount, and it's asking me to type it in. I've typed in 500. Hit the OK button. It's hard to see, but at the top it shows a total of $8.25. And that's the $5, and I continue on with the device. It asks me to accept the amount, $8.25, and then it's going to go out and process that. This is going to come back with a decline because, as I mentioned, it can't use this. I would have to use my live ATM card on these accounts with a live SBS account, which I have not set up for this demo. So those are some of the screens that the program can use. I'll just tender this out with cash. I'd like to go back to our presentation slideshow. So we talked about how the customer can select a different payment type, credit, debit, EBT, or gift cards. We also talked about this as an IP device. This is not plugged in with USB or serial. It's an Ethernet Cat5 cable we have plugged in here. If I look at the next bunch of features here, we kind of saw the screens that showed that the customer can select their own gratuity and or their cash back if we allow it in Keystroke. And if the screen allows it, you can turn the screen off, and even if you allow it in Keystroke, the screen will still be off and not prompt them for that. You can customize these buttons that I just showed you through their, they call it their OS menu interface. The reset button is on the bottom of the device. As you saw, it's one of those reset buttons where you put, there's a good view of it maybe, where you put a paper clip. The old master tool set for any device is a paper clip. You push that, it comes up, prompts you for a password. You put that in, and then you have a whole bank of different settings you can do in their OS menu. Merchant Warehouse has been very good with some of our dealers. If you send them a company logo, they can get that logo put into the device. So currently right now you see the Genius that says the Customer Engagement Platform. That could say SBS, Retail Management Software, or POS, Keystroke Advanced POS, anything like that. So they can help you with that. I did want to show you quickly some of the documentation that we have in Keystroke. Let me pull this up. So this document came from Merchant Warehouse, and this shows how you change the static IP. This is a little bit similar to what we talked about. This is where you hit the reset button, put in the password. It shows you where to go to, administrator communications network, Ethernet. It's a little pencil icon. You change it to static IP, and you can put in the IP address. So each and every device would have its own unique IP address. You can have two machines sharing the device. They can both look for the same device if you have two close proximity registers. It's almost best to get one for each, but you could share. I'm going to show another document here. This is our installation instructions. Oops, I picked the wrong one. Let's close that. Do that again. Hopefully I had the right one up there. This document here is called the Installation Instructions for the Merchant Warehouse Genius. This PDF is actually on our website, and you can download it. If you need help, just give us a call. It talks about how to set it up. It talks about setting it up in Keystroke, using the test pin button. There's some more information about the payment mapping and so forth, the position of the payments. If you want to get the selected by customer at the top of the list, that could be done too. How to check the IP. This one's a little simpler here. This is where you hit 000 on the keypad and then enter the password. And I'm going to go ahead and do that here, 000, and put in the password. This is showing me now when I hit 000. It's asking me for an admin password on the device, and I'll type in on the pin pad 9416557, hit enter. Might be hard to see in the webcam view, but this shows us the, sorry, it is very difficult to see. Shows us the serial number, shows us an IP address. Sorry about the glare. This is probably not, should have gotten a picture of this. Anyhow, this is where you can see if you got the right IP address, what your app version is. We're currently on app version 4.3.0. That device is not released to the public yet. That allows for using this device for signature only, meaning you can take on-account payments in Keystroke, but have the customer sign for it, so they're not using a card at all. Talks about this is our setup instructions. Have some more help. Some of them are how to configure the payments. You can actually turn off, let's say, the gift cards if you don't take gift cards and so forth. You can turn on or off debit if you're not taking debit cards. Of course, you wouldn't have a pin pad if you're not taking debit cards. But you may want to change the order of them, where they're at, and so forth. When you get one of these devices, there's usually 6 different payment buttons, including loyalty, gift, and some other stuff that some people just don't use. I've simplified this screen to show credit, debit, and EBT, and that's only 3 choices. This information is in our PDF, so you can grab this from our website. There are no drivers or anything needed. You just plug this in and turn the power on, and it starts up. And actually, even on this screen here, the one you couldn't read very well, there's an update button. If I hit the update button, it's going to say there's no updates available. But their development team, in this case, actually, they call it push a app version down to this device, and they can do that on demand if needed for special occasions. And that's also how you can get the company logo. They can upload the logo via the internet. They're pretty good at taking care of all that. So back to our presentation here. I think we're finishing up. I'm going to open up, turn off the muting. If anyone has any questions about this, I'll go ahead and do that now. Oops, I think, there we go. So if anyone has any questions for me about the Genius device, I'll go ahead and answer those now. Okay, well, remember, you can get the installation instructions from our website. It's a PDF file that has step-by-step instructions. We have one in-house here so people can help answer your questions and so forth. And thank you for attending today's presentation. And have a good day. And then next week, almost forgot to say, but next week Lynn is going to be going over in-house list authorization. So it's an in-house list, different type of an authorization method. That you can create your own list and just manage it there instead of using the outside world. All right, thank you very much, and hope to see you next week. Thank you.